There's a version of kindness that doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being rejected, fear of conflict. So we start molding ourselves into smaller shapes, carefully editing our words, and carrying the emotional weight of others while quietly setting aside our own. We say it's okay when it's not. We smile when we're hurt. We forgive when there's been no apology. And little by little, that kind heart of ours starts to shrink behind a wall of silence. This is what I call self-erasure disguised as kindness. It's when our need to be kind turns into a pattern of self-abandonment. We believe that being nice will earn us love, but what it really earns us is exhaustion. People begin to expect our silence, to rely on our compliance. They stop asking how we feel because our kindness has trained them not to. And when we finally speak up, they're shocked. Not because we've changed, but because we've finally shown up. True kindness is not about disappearing to keep others happy. It's about being present, fully, authentically, unapologetically. It's saying, I can care about you without betraying myself. The moment we learn that lesson, kindness stops being a tool for approval and becomes a reflection of our integrity. Because the most powerful kindness doesn't come from fear of losing people. It comes from the strength of not losing yourself. One of the hardest lessons kind-hearted people ever learn is that not everyone sees kindness for what it truly is. For some, kindness is compassion. For others, it's an invitation to take advantage. When you're calm instead of confrontational, they call you weak. When you choose forgiveness over revenge, they assume you've surrendered. And when you choose peace over power games, they label you as too soft. But here's the truth. A kindness is not weakness, it's wisdom wrapped in grace. It takes strength to stay kind in a world that glorifies aggression. It takes courage to respond with empathy when you could easily retaliate. Weakness is reactive. It lashes out from insecurity. Kindness, on the other hand, is intentional. It's steady, rooted, and deeply aware of its own power. Yet the misunderstanding continues because society often mistakes stillness for submission. We live in a culture that applauds loudness, dominance, and control. But kindness doesn't shout. It speaks through quiet strength. It's not about being passive. It's about knowing you don't have to match someone's disrespect to prove your worth. The danger lies in what happens when people exploit that misunderstanding. They start testing your limits. They take your forgiveness for granted. They assume you'll always be available, always understanding, always giving, no matter how much it costs you. And that's when your kindness becomes their comfort zone and your discomfort becomes invisible. But here's where true transformation happens, that when you decide that your kindness will have boundaries. You can be soft and still say no. You can be gentle and still demand respect. You can be understanding and still walk away. Kindness without strength is easily manipulated, but kindness with clarity, that's power. Think about it. Anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can use fear or anger to gain control, but not everyone can remain grounded when the room is loud. Not everyone can stand tall in silence when others mock, dismiss, or take advantage. That level of composure is not weakness, it's mastery. True kindness has an edge. It's not naive. It sees everything, the motives, the manipulation, the masks, and still chooses dignity over destruction. But it also knows when to step back, because the kindest thing you can sometimes do for yourself is to stop giving you our softness to people who haven't earned it. Remember this, you're not weak because you care deeply. You're not fragile because you forgive easily. You're not powerless because you choose peace. There's a quiet kind of pain that comes from being too understanding for too long. It's not loud or dramatic, and it's subtle. It's the ache of always giving grace while secretly hoping someone will finally notice how much it costs you. That's what happens when kindness lives without boundaries. We assume that if we are generous, patient, and forgiving enough, people will naturally respect our limits. We tell ourselves they'll understand, but they don't, because we never told them where our limits were. We keep it all inside, convincing ourselves that saying nothing is the kind thing to do. But silence has consequences. Every time we bite our tongue to avoid conflict, resentment takes root. Every time we say it's fine when it's not, we teach others that their comfort is more important than our honesty. And every time we let something slide, we slowly begin to slide out of alignment with ourselves. Here's the truth most kind people avoid. You cannot expect others to respect boundaries you never communicate. When you stay silent to keep the peace, you're not protecting the relationship. You're protecting the illusion of harmony. And illusions always break. What starts as small discomforts, a dismissive tone, a forgotten promise, a thoughtless comment, eventually becomes deep emotional exhaustion. You wake up one day realizing that people don't value your time, your energy, or your feelings, not because they're cruel, but because your silence taught them not to. It's a heartbreaking cycle. We give and we give until we're running on empty. Then we feel invisible, and worse, unappreciated. And when we finally speak up, we're met with shock. Why are you suddenly upset? They don't realize that we've been swallowing our frustration for years. Setting boundaries is often misunderstood as being rude or selfish, but boundaries are not walls, they're bridges of honesty. They tell others, this is how I can love you without losing myself. Kindness without boundaries invites chaos, but kindness with boundaries creates respect. When you start communicating your limits clearly, you'll notice something powerful. The people who truly value you will listen and adjust, and the ones who only benefited from your silence will fall away. Not because you were unkind, but because they were never there for you, only for your compliance. Boundaries are love in action. They protect your peace, your energy, and your dignity. They teach people how to treat you, and more importantly, they teach you that your feelings are valid, that you deserve to be heard, not just needed. So the next time you find yourself about to say, it's fine, pause. Ask yourself, is it really fine, or am I afraid of being seen as difficult? You owe it to yourself to speak your truth kindly but firmly, because the cost of unspoken boundaries is always the same, self-betrayal. And the moment you start honoring your truth out loud, kindness transforms from something people use against you into something that strengthens and protects you. There's a moment every kind-hearted person reaches, and a quiet breaking point that doesn't always come with anger, but with exhaustion. You start to feel it deep inside, the weight of always being the one who listens, the one who shows up, the one who fixes what others break. At first, it feels good to give. You find purpose in helping, healing, comforting. You convince yourself that being available for everyone is what makes you valuable. But over time, something shifts. You start to notice how empty you feel after certain conversations, how heavy your heart becomes after being the strong one for too long. This is the hidden cost of emotional overgiving, the burnout that comes from being kind without balance. You start pouring from a cup that's long been dry, hoping your effort will inspire others to care as deeply as you do. But what you don't realize is that some people have grown used to your constant give. There's a quiet shift that happens in many relationships, a slow, almost invisible change. It begins with closeness, with comfort, with familiarity. And before we even notice it, that same familiarity that once felt warm and safe begins to blur into something else, disrespect. At first, people are grateful for your kindness. They thank you for your understanding, your patience, your support. But over time, the thank yous fade. The appreciation turns into expectation. What was once special becomes ordinary, and what was once a choice becomes an obligation. You see, when people get used to your kindness, they stop seeing it as something valuable. They start assuming it will always be there. Your efforts, once admired, become part of the background, unnoticed, unacknowledged, and unappreciated. And this is where the danger begins. Familiarity breeds entitlement. They stop saying thank you because they've come to expect your yes. They stop asking, are you okay? Because they assume you always will be. They stop respecting your boundaries because they've mistaken your consistency for permission. It's not that they've become cruel, it's that they've grown comfortable in your generosity. And comfort without awareness easily turns into carelessness. This is the tragedy of being the dependable one. The more reliable you are, the more invisible you become. People stop noticing your effort because it's constant. They see your calmness, not your exhaustion, your strength, not your struggle, your patience, not your pain. You start to wonder, do they even realize how much I give? And the truth is, they don't. Because your kindness has become part of the wallpaper of their lives, always there, always expected, rarely appreciated. The deeper truth here is this: people respect what they fear losing. When they know your kindness is unconditional, when they know you'll always forgive, always return, always say yes, and they stop treating it as a gift. That's when kindness begins to turn into disrespect, not always through harsh words or open conflict, but through subtle neglect. The missed calls, the lack of reciprocation, the one-sided conversations, all signs that your energy has become taken for granted. But the responsibility doesn't just lie with them, it also lies with us, because we teach people how to treat us. When we never set limits, never ask for appreciation, never say, I need something too, we unintentionally tell others that we're fine with imbalance. So how do we change this? By remembering that kindness is not infinite, it's intentional. You are allowed to pull back when you feel drained. You are allowed to pause when your kindness is being consumed, not cherished. You are allowed to say, I'm not available right now, without guilt. When you start protecting your energy, something beautiful happens. The people who truly value you will adjust. They'll start saying thank you again. They'll listen more, give more, and meet you halfway. But the ones who only stayed for what you offered, they'll fade. And that's okay, because they were never there for you, only for your giving. Familiarity can breed disrespect only when kindness has no boundaries. But when kindness is paired with self-respect, it becomes something stronger. It becomes mutual. So the next time you notice your efforts being overlooked, don't harden your heart, just raise your standards. Because the people who truly deserve your kindness will never take it for granted. They'll recognize it for what it is, a gift that deserves care, not comfort. And that's the balance we all must learn, to give freely, but never endlessly. Because true kindness should never make you feel unseen. It should remind others how lucky they are to be loved by someone like you. There's a form of kindness that doesn't come from the heart. It comes from guilt. And this kind of kindness feels heavy. It doesn't flow naturally. It feels forced, almost. There's a deep, quiet fear that lives inside many kind-hearted people. The fear of being rejected for who they truly are. It's not the loud kind of fear that screams or demands attention. It's subtle. It hides beneath your constant willingness to help, your endless patience, your polite smiles. It whispers, if I say no, they'll leave. If I speak up, they'll think I'm difficult. If I show how I really feel, they won't love me anymore. And so instead of being honest, you start performing kindness like it's a survival strategy. You become the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who always holds things together. Not because you always want to, but because you're afraid that if you stop, everything else will fall apart. But here's the painful truth. If your relationships depend on your silence or self-sacrifice, they were never built on love. They were built on fear. When we fear rejection, we trade authenticity for acceptance. We start shrinking our truth to fit inside the comfort zones of others. We tolerate behavior that hurts us. We laugh off comments that sting, and we keep the peace while losing our own. It's heartbreaking because deep down you know you deserve more. You want to be loved for your honesty, not your compliance. You want to be accepted for your truth, not your tolerance. But fear convinces you that authenticity is too risky, that the moment you draw a boundary or express a need, people will walk away. And sometimes they do. But here's the miracle in that loss. The people who leave when you start showing up honestly were never choosing you. They were choosing your usefulness, your emotional labor, your patience, your endless giving. When those people leave, they're not rejecting your worth, they're rejecting your boundaries, and that's not your loss, that's your liberation. Every time you say no from a place of truth, you're teaching. Gee, the world who you are and what you deserve. Every time you speak up for yourself, you're filtering out relationships that only survived on your silence. And every time you choose authenticity over approval, you get closer to the kind of love that doesn't require you to perform. You see, rejection isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's redirection. It's the universe clearing space for people who can meet you where you are, not where you're pretending to be. The fear of rejection often comes from old wounds, maybe childhood moments where love felt conditional, where you had to behave a certain way to feel safe or accepted. But healing means unlearning that pattern. It means realizing that your value doesn't depend on your ability to keep everyone happy. You are allowed to disappoint people. You are allowed to be misunderstood. You are allowed to lose people who can't love the real you, because the love that's meant for you will never require you to disappear to stay in it. True kindness doesn't mean being agreeable at all costs. It means showing up as your whole self, kind, yes, but also honest, imperfect, and real. And the people who truly value you will never make you choose between your authenticity and their approval. So if your fear of rejection keeps you quiet, remember this: you can't be truly loved while pretending to be someone else. Let people meet the real you, the one who feels deeply, loves sincerely, and isn't afraid to take up space. It's one of the most misunderstood forms of strength because it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, and it doesn't dominate the room. It stands